Thank you, gentleman and lady, for finding time to join us on this debate. So I would like to start with you, Mari. Let's have your preliminary assessment of the concept using ballot in elections. Do you think this has delivered the desired result in promoting democracy?
Yes, thank you very much, Imo, once again for this opportunity to discuss the power of the ballots, especially because this year is a crucial election year for West Africa with Senegal already who went through the ballot paper process, and then the whole of West Africa is also looking at Ghana in December. So yeah, I must say that the ballot is a very essential criteria to determine whether a democracy is healthy or not. So it gives ordinary people opportunity to, influence government decisions, choose their leaders, and shape the direction of their society. And as you rightly introduced us at the beginning, being from the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, a citizens-based network, it is important for citizens as they are able to vote, and that ballot process also empower them to affect change and ensure that the government reflects the interest of the majority while also protecting minority rights.
Hmm.
So there are key roles that as citizens, a citizen is expected to exercise through the power of the ballot. So as I said, through the ballot, citizens elect representative at various levels. So not only at the national level, but also at the local and regional level. And very importantly, also, it's a key criteria to hold leaders accountable. That's a very, very important determinant of a healthy democracy. We
Hmm.
should be able, as citizens, to hold our leaders accountable. And because this is done through election itself serves as a mechanism for accountability. So if leaders fail to meet the expectation of their
Yeah.
constitution or to engage in issues like corruption, mismanagement, or abuse of power, citizens can vote them out of the office, and that's essential for democracy. And then also through the ballot paper, citizens can influence policies and law, and they strengthen democratic legitimacy. There has been that debate about is democracy really necessary in Africa? Is it the best the best system that we have? But ballot papers have that power of also strengthening that democratic legitimacy. Democracy might not be the only system,
I carried
but
dog.
Hmm.
so far it is the best,
Hmm.
and we assess it through ballot paper. And then also it can foster civic responsibility. But there are also challenges. So when it comes to the power of the ballot,
Yeah.
there are challenges that limit citizens' ability to exercise their power effectively. And we can mention many, among which sometimes we have voter suppression and disenfranchisement,
Hmm.
um, low voter turnout, all those issues around corruption and electoral fraud, and also the political instability, the general context of
Hmm.
political instability and insecurity. So yeah, the power of the ballot is one of the most important tools, as I said earlier, that citizens have to influence to influence their government and ensure that leaders are accountable. And when used effectively,
Yeah.
it empowers individual to shape the future of their
Mm.
community.
Well, yeah, just to cut in, I think we would like to maybe look at more about the challenges like you've mentioned. They are enormous, And the good thing is, we would also do a comparison of what it is like in Ghana and what it is in Nigeria. But in the meantime, I'd like you to place emphasis on if uh, it has really, deliver in terms of the desired result, which everybody want. We know how democracy is backsliding now in West Africa. In your own words, is this still the best form of election, best form of process for electing leadership?
Yeah, so as you said, there has been a lot of challenge around the ballot paper, and I mentioned some of them, like voter suppression and disenfranchisement. It's in most elections process in West Africa, there are always complaints, ahead of election.
Yeah.
You will hear about those voter suppression tactics. I think it is everywhere, and generally, uh, those complaints emanate from opponents, because generally the party that is in power will not complain about it, but opponents are always raising concern, and also some concern come from the civil society as well.
Yeah.
So those tactics include restrictive voter ID laws, for instance.
Mm.
If you look at specific countries' electoral laws, I'm really not an expert into it, but the general observation has been that there are always complaints about the law, the electoral code, and then also issues around limited polling location, that can disenfranchise certain groups, particularly minorities, the poor, and the rural population. Then there are also challenges of corruption and electoral fraud. We have heard, I think, the issue was really strong also in the case of Senegal ahead of the election.
Yes.
There were complaints around corruption of the members of the constitutional code. And then in some other countries, you have low voter turnout. As far as I know, in Ghana, it's the voter turnout seems to be appreciable, but in other countries, especially our francophone countries, there is a trend there of low voter turnout. So in those democracies, citizens, they feel disillusioned or disconnected from the political process. If you look at data from most of the francophone countries, Togo, and even the countries in transition, you notice that the voter turnout is very low. And then also I can say there is lack of information.
Okay.
Yeah. So generally, citizens are not informed, are not very well informed. So I know in Ghana there is a lot of initiatives to strengthen awareness among the citizens. Right now, there is a lot of campaign, my vote, my choice, choose, So all those initiatives help to address the lack of information issues.
Okay. So as Madam talks about lack of information to at least help voters in their choice during the balloting, want to find out that as part of principles of free and fair elections and democracy, it is facilitated by the ballot. But first of all, want to know, how do people actually get onto the ballot and at various positions? Sometimes people are at number 1 on the ballot, people are number 3 on the ballot, number 5, number 6, 7, wherever. How are those processes done, Mr. Austin?
The ballot paper is just a symbol of the power of the people. That is not necessarily the power of the people. And I was trying to allude that in countries, for instance, like the Gambia, they don't have the ballot paper. What they have is the marble seed. The marble seed, therefore, is their ballot. In Nigeria, Ghana, and many other places, including Senegal, you have the symbolic paper. And that paper is the power of the people. The whole idea of that symbol is for the people to cast a vote. That vote is the power of electing a leader. In this context, as you are asking about how they get to the level of having a ballot, for every citizen above 18 in all of the countries majorly, including Nigeria, Ghana, and elsewhere, because of what the Constitution says in most of those countries, it is when you become 18, you are eligible to vote. However, in most countries too, even though you are eligible to vote, you are not yet eligible to be voted for. In Nigeria, we just had a few years ago, they're not too young to run. So you now have many young people from 25 years vying for at least the lowest of the positions of the councillors of the local government administration. Then for the governor, the president, the ages are different. So the idea is that the younger you are, the most likely you may not have the experience to govern a country. Even though we know that many years ago, we had 32, 30 years old ruling a country. Gowon, former General Gowon, who is the only living founder of the ECOWAS Commission, was 32, I'll be 30 or 32 when he became head of state. But now, to be 30 or 32, you can no longer become president of Nigeria. What am I saying in essence? That the ballot is a weapon that the people use. It is supposed to be just a paper, but that paper has power. The force behind that paper is the will of the people. And that ballot is not to be taken for granted. In most countries, including Nigeria, the ballot is a very strong legal paper. If you tear it on the day of election, you can go to jail because it's supposed to be it's a power. You may see it just as a paper, but it's actually the power. There's a power behind that paper. For now, maybe just to stop here for further interrogation.
Yes, indeed. Ms. Olsen, thank you for the opening remark. But just to chip this in, do you think even the leaders still see that ballot paper as the power of the people? Because, we have seen several elections where, this ballot are overstuffed or misused or abused in some cases or used to commit fraud. How does this play out, and where can we actually separate the power of the people and the ballot paper just being a paper itself?
Thank you. And that was why I used the word symbolic. And I talked about the population the population growth informing that symbolic paper. For instance, years ago, in fact, in 1992, June 12th, we didn't have a ballot. We had the Operation A4, in which the people stood on the line and each person was counted. That kind of vote pattern may not happen again in the country called Nigeria. Because the population now, as at that time, the voting population may be around 20 million or thereabout, even less than 20 million. Now we have almost 100 million voting population. Having people to queue up on election day will be a weird scenario. In addition to that, the queuing up, the option A4 of the Nigerian experience actually led to a number of gender-based violence. Many women couldn't vote for the choice, for their own choice, again, the power of the ballot. Many women who were afraid of their husband because maybe their husband wanted to vote for party A, but these wives or women wanted to vote for party B. Because of that restriction from their family, most women ended up going to vote the party of their choice, and eventually resulted into wife battering and all of that. A lot of issues happened. Marriages were destroyed because of that election. And that was why the pattern had to stop. That women usually face the challenge of an option A4 system, where people queue up and you count. In fact, if you know that election was a very strict election, you see, each party, in fact, it was generally two parties, the SDP and the NROC.
NRC.
If you are for the NROC, you queue up behind the NROC. If you are for the SDP, you queue behind the SDP. And they count 1, 2, 3, 4. You count it. But in this case, you can no longer do that because system has improved, technology has come. I agree with you that the ballot paper, that symbol of the ballot, is no longer representational of the will and the power of the people. And that is why most often there's a conversation going beyond just paper alone, but to a way that after the paper, and so what? Info now, papers at the polling unit are effective. But now the real manipulation of the vote is no longer the paper, it's the collation of results. So they wait for you to go and vote, cast your vote, cast it 12, it doesn't matter. By the time it's time for collation, you then start seeing that some of the votes that were done effectively were at the polling unit are now be cancelled at the collation point. It's a very weird scenario. But for me, I am going to a point where we use the dual nature. You use the ballot, you use the electronic means. Then we can then use the ballot paper to match the electronic means, but use the electronic means in the computation of the vote in such a way that human error can be removed from the collation process.
Madam Mary, let me come to you. I would like you to pick it up from where Ms. Elson ended, talking about merging the electronic system and the paper system. And then before we talk about, what he took the
coalition of it.
Exactly. So how does this play out when at the end of the day, whatever you are counting electronically doesn't match what you are getting with the physical paper?
Sorry, I was muted. Can you come again with the question?
Yeah, so I was asking you to take it off from where Mr. Olsen left his response, merging electronic, the ballot system and the physical paper system itself, because now we've seen elections these days, whatever you count on the electronic system doesn't amount to what you have with the physical ballot paper. How do we sort this out?
Okay, so let me start by saying that today, talking about the technology within the ballot paper process, it's actually we're actually talking about the future of the ballot paper, right?
Yeah.
Because the context is in such a way that there is a lot of transformation, shaped by advancement in technology, the drive for more and transparent elections, and the need, as you say, to overcome challenges such as, voter fraud and logistical difficulties. So I think what we are talking about here are those challenges that are related to the association of technology to the ballot paper process. And it is something that we really need to take a critical look at, because as time goes, we are not going to escape from it. I mean, we should rather find ways to for the new technologies to continue shaping the future of the ballot paper in West Africa. So yes, it can happen that the result, as you are saying, that the result that has been counted electronically
yeah,
doesn't reflect the numbers. But nevertheless, it's I think it's a call to just, I think there is a problem of habits. It's in Africa, and I want to take the specific example of West Africa. We are just being introduced to those new technologies, and the fact is that it's increasing. The increased use of technology, biometric and electronic voting system, digital transmission of result, everything. We just have to get used to it. And the beginnings might be very difficult because there will be challenge, but we have hopes because countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, they have already, on that, they are very a little bit far. So there is a need to take lessons from them, and then to build from challenges arising from their different electoral process to think about solutions. And those countries that I've mentioned that are technologically advanced in terms of electoral process, you can also see that in terms of democracy, they are still an example in West Africa. So my point is that in order to address that problem, it's not once or just in one time that it will be resolved. It requires a lot of attempts, a lot of electoral technology used, electoral processes, but introducing those electronic systems, even though sometimes it doesn't reflect the real numbers, it still it tells us that it requires a significant investment in infrastructure. So we need to our leaders, and not only our leaders, our international partners, they need to really keep an eye on the investment in infrastructure, in electoral infrastructure. I know there are some organizations out there, they already do a good job, like the NDI that supports electoral processes and especially the use of technology. But one way to address those issues might be to really think of investing in infrastructure, and then training electoral staff. Because they are the one doing the work, they are the one also doing the counting, they are the one trying to align, what's the result electronically and the different counting. So they need some strong training. And also, most importantly, we have to look at the public trust in technology. As it stands now, because of those challenges that you just mentioned, it has an impact on the public trust on tech. So it's also something that all citizens need to be informed, and that their trust needs to be built on those things, so that when those processes arise, they feel involved and they want to take part into the process. So in a way that all citizens will become observers of elections. So it requires, to address it, as I said, investment into infrastructure, training of electoral staff, and then also improving public trust in technology. So, and then, some other maybe in addition, some areas, with this one is just a systemic contribution that I'm giving. In Africa here, we still struggle with electricity. We still struggle with
internet,
we still struggle with
connectivity,
access to internet.
So it's all
so it might really impact that use of technology, that trust that we want to put in the technology. But my point is that we will not escape the use of technology into that process.
Okay.
So we need to do with it.
Right. So while we're still trying as a sub-region to improve technology and improve trust, one find out that do people at a point in time act irresponsibly towards the management of ballot papers, i.e. we see political parties where they gang up to actually man the ballot paper on their own, while it's supposed to be the work of the Electoral Commission. If care is not taken in that process, how does that degenerate into conflict and, of course, leads to instability in the country? Mr. Austin.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't expecting to hear my name. Okay.
Sorry, I think the question...
Mr. Austin,
the question was directed to me, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I muted because of some background noise, but
Okay.
So so your question was related to
irresponsible management of the ballot paper, where sometimes political parties man it on their own that must be the job of the Electoral Commission, thereby degenerating into conflicts. Hence, how does that affect the stability of democracy in various countries?
Yes, that's actually a very good point, because the behavior of citizens, actually, I personally think that it varies from countries to countries. There are those countries where there is less, let me say, citizens are not trusted to behave responsibly, and there are those countries also where there is a level of citizens' conscience. So those countries that I've mentioned earlier, Ghana, Senegal, to a certain extent, Benin, maybe Austin will elaborate more on Nigeria, but we have seen how a general trend for citizens are to really conduct or be involved in those processes in a peaceful manner. When early this year we were in Senegal, we were surprised, as citizens being used to the system in Ghana, we were surprised that before the results are communicated by the Electoral Commission, CSOs had already issued statements with, clear result before even official announcement from the Electoral Commission, and which is strictly forbidden in Ghana. You don't do that. So, but I want to believe that in Senegal, the way CSO citizens are vibrant, and they have that legitimacy to speak out, to voice out. That's what gives them that possibility to do that. And because in Senegal they would trust their people, that is why in Senegal even the military will not just interfere anyhow, because there is a certain level of respect.
Yeah.
Citizens, they know how to respect each other, so it's a mindset thing. In Ghana, the law clearly says that it is forbidden to declare any results before the Electoral Commission, even to make allusion to a certain to a possible result. And I think they do that to, just as you said, to maintain a certain atmosphere in the post-election period, to avoid a certain kind of instability and violence. But there are other countries where if you go ahead with talking about possible results before it is officially announced, then that will be terrible for the country. That can lead to violence, and I think we have seen some examples in certain West African countries. So I think that it really depends on where we stand. It is not the same depending on the country in West Africa where you are, but the general trend is that the practice of publishing results ahead of the Electoral Commission is actually dangerous for the political stability and the security.
Yeah, change the figures and then release it afterward. That is why I'm saying that there needs to be a paper trail. When you vote on election day, it's like a POS machine. When you use the POS machine, a printout is given to you as confirmation of your votes to a kind of extent. That paper, you then drop that paper in a ballot box. But that POS device had recorded your vote. When there's a dispute between the result recorded electronically and the paper trail, then they can use the paper trail to answer any kind of judicial question. But in this case, where you have the manipulation, is at the result level, at the result collation level. And that's exactly what came up in Ghana assessment. That the NDC, the opposition party, is claiming that the problem with the election is not with the vote on election day. It is the collation up to the announcement result. They fear that because the devices used by the Electoral Commission may have been manipulated because they consider rigging of election from the voter register list, that there could be influx of people who may not exist on the voter register, and as such can be used to manipulate the result on election day. However, for preparation, citizens are super excited waiting for the election day. The same way I used the word just now, that what you have in Senegal with the enthusiasm of citizens to vote in an election, you don't see that maybe for a country like in Nigeria. Why am I saying this? Ghana's last election, it was over 70% of turnout. In Nigeria, we are still struggling to have 30%. In fact, if we have 35%, that would be joy for us. In Senegal, you saw the huge crowd that turned out. The same thing happened in Syria alone. But at the end of the day, people complain bitterly that the processes were adjusted, the processes were manipulated. So that's why I'm recommending that if you want a seamless process that will enhance trust of citizens and, of course, improve turnout, using the Nigerian example, you will need an electronic means. In Nigeria, let me stay with Nigeria a bit. In the 2023 election, there was some form of introduction of electronic, which is the IREP. What is the IREP? The IREP is the INEC Result Viewing Portal. That platform, after the election at the polling unit, results counted at the polling unit, like I told you earlier, manipulation results usually don't happen at the polling unit point. It happened at the collation process. So the Nigerian Election Management Body opened up the process in a bit that after elections are held at the polling unit, all of those results written in the result platform, which is the Form EC8A, those result sheets are snapped. Picture is taken of those result sheets and eventually sent online, which is the IREF portal. What that means is that every citizen around the world, including citizens of other countries, can have access to their result sheets and then use that. So they use that result sheet and they begin to collate result ahead. What does that mean? It helps with voter confidence. That is why the US election is an election to watch. You see results from all manner of states trickling in, and people are excited. You see Republican election going up. You see XYZ Democrat going up, and there's an excitement. Citizens are engaged. But in Africa, it is not the same story. I just wanted to put that in place, that the Ghana election, there's a level of preparedness, very huge preparation. Citizens are prepared. The election management body is prepared. But there's still that skepticism about whether the election will be free and fair. But from what I saw on a personal observation, I think if the parties truly train their party agents, that election and all of the system put in place in Ghana is enough to give free, fair, and credible poll. Thank you very much.
Indeed. I'd like to just chip this in. Ms. Austin, I mean, you talked about the Nigerian election and just a little comparison. I know you have covered that of Ghana during the second term of Nana Akufo-Addo. I just want you to just a little comparison. What makes both elections different? And then I would like also Mari to talk about that of the Gambia that make use of the symbolic seed, a pebble, different from what we have in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. Ms. Austin, you first.
Okay, so in the Ghanaian election, you see why Ghana is so unique. It's because of the citizens' awareness, the citizens' quest to vote in an election. They haven't seen this level of manipulation that you see in countries like in Nigeria, or what we had in the 2023 election of June in Syria alone, that created some withdrawal of a major political party from the governance system of that country. In Ghana, there seems to be, I don't know how they do it. It's like a baton. NPP will do 8 years, NDC will come after 8 years and they run election. And you see that democracy enhanced. And over time, there's this huge argument that Ghana's democracy is one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the region, because of the way in which you see, just like in the American system, Democrats will come in, the Republican will come in. It's like a baton. And citizens, when they try you, you are not performing, they sack you after 8 years. And that is so unique. But in this Ghana election, it may be different because right now, the NPP think that they want to break that gene. They think that they've done better, that Nana Akufo-Addo has done beyond imagination, that it can break the gene, that the NPP may break the gene. But that becomes a flip side for the NDC, the party in opposition, thinking that the only way to break the gene is to manipulate the election. Because after all, there are complaints from citizens. The economy, whether you like it or not, there are those who will not like it, there are those who will like it, and all of those sentiments and on. But the uniqueness is the number of people that turn out to vote. It shows trust in the system. Again, trust in the system. Electoral trust is the most valid for the strengthening of democracies. Otherwise, if you don't trust democracy, if you don't trust the electoral system, the possibility of manipulation is high. You can do that, take a clue from the example of the Nigerian state, wherein after people turned out in the 2023 election, suddenly there was what is now known as glitches. And whether the glitches, whatever it means, that at the point of people rushing to the online platform to verify their results, there was the platform has collapsed. People didn't have access to the online platform promised ahead of the election, which ought to have improved the trust system, but rather it undermined the citizens' confidence in the electoral process. And that's why you see after that 2023 election, all of the off-cycle elections that are taking place in this country, citizens tell you what's the essence of voting when the vote does not count. But in Ghana, it is not the same thing. In Ghana, people believe their vote will count. In fact, in the last election of 2016, where the NDC candidate John Mahama lost the election, he went to, in fact, even though he went to court and the Supreme Court argued that he never had a case. In fact, they call it case an academic work, meaning that he didn't really have the substance to argue in court. But if you check what has happened in Syria alone, the opposition party did not go to court because they felt that the court had been captured. The same thing in Nigeria, even though the opposition, the folks who lost in the election in Nigeria, thought that the electoral process was manipulated, but they went to court. But again, after the court processes, it was clear that there was almost like a state capture and the judicial capture. And that's something that's also coming up from Ghana, that there could be judicial capture. If you look at indices coming out now from leading research institutions, including Afrobarometer and Co., there's a downward trend in terms of belief in democracy, and that is not good for West Africa. Sincerely, Ghana's electoral system, whether I like it or not, had an improvement over the Nigerian system. Why? Because of the level of confidence of voters.
Very interesting analysis there and comparison, Mr. Austin. Well, Mari, let's hear you. The Gambia symbolic seed, the pebble, and the ballot paper in Ghana.
You meant Ghana or the
Yes,
Gambia?
a comparison of the pebble used in the Gambia and the ballot paper in Ghana.
Okay. First of all, the Gambia, the particularity of the Gambia is that in terms of democracy, Gambia is compared to Ghana. Gambia is we can say still new to democracy because you might be aware that there was Gambia just come out from a very long authoritarian system, 22 years of Yahya Jammeh ruling on the country, and that ended just in 2017. And the right from 2017, they started a democratic reform process. So the country is undergoing some key important reforms, and one of the main reform is related to the constitution, to make sure that the constitution give less power to the executive and provide some checks and balance, and then more importantly also provide a provision of term limits that will then allow citizens to use the power of the ballot to decide of the fate of the country. You might know that Gambia was the only country without term limit in West Africa. So compared to Ghana, I think we shouldn't even compare the two countries. I mean, Gambia is new. Gambia is making some good progress in terms of democracy. Meanwhile, Ghana is a very stable democracy for a certain period of time now. But let me just try to say something about key aspect of the Gambia electoral process, because after Jammeh, the country went for election just after Jammeh, and then the last one was in 2021, and it's supposed to go again in 2026. Yes, I think it's 2026. So as for Gambia, I know that Gambia use a biometric voter registration, which is very commendable for a country that has just started with democratic progress. And then they also use a unique ballot system, unlike most countries that use paper ballots like Ghana. So I think it's very unique. So it's like in this system, voters are given like a marble which they place, in a drum, kind of that correspond to their to their candidate of choice. Yeah. And so for what I know, each drum is marked with the candidate's symbol and color. So it's quite interesting because unlike Ghana, Gambia make use of that unique ballot system instead of the paper ballot. So I think that's one of the main criteria of the Gambia situation. And then Gambia also holds different several type of elections, like presidential elections, parliamentary elections, local government election. But I want to emphasize that the case in the Gambia, Gambia is really, as I was saying, is in its post-Jammeh era. So it's really going through some very important reform. I think it also include electoral reform. In recent years, there have been discussions on further electoral reform, such as modernizing the voting system, potentially moving from that marble system to a more conventional paper or electronic voting methods. And as I was saying, calls for constitutional reform to limit presidential term, to allow voting process to be more recurrent is underway. So between Gambia and Ghana, there is very strong difference. There is very strong difference. And in Ghana, from what I know, both Gambia and Ghana, they have distinct electoral process. And as I said, it is linked to their really political history, right? So the Gambia use a marble voting system, meanwhile Ghana use ballot paper. And then in Ghana also, yes, the next election is just supposed to hold in December, and in Gambia here, that will be in 2026. So both countries, I might say, have high voter engagement. So I think from the statistics, because when thinking through it, I quickly searched for the statistic, and it says that in the Gambia, the voter turnout is around 89%. Like the last election in 2021, it was quite good. And then in Ghana, 79% in 2020. So at least it's true Gambia is a small country. So if you look at the ratio, it won't reach the number of voters in Ghana, but still to have 89% as voter turnout is really commendable. And then, as I said, the voting methods, Gambia and Ghana, Gambia use a unique system. They are looking forward to change it, but in Ghana, it is more standardized. They use a paper ballot system. And as I said at the beginning of my intervention, Ghana's democratic institutions are very well established with regular peaceful elections, while the Gambia is still consolidating its democracy following years of autocratic rule under Jammeh. But in conclusion, I want to say that in both countries, elections are seen as crucial to maintaining democratic governance, and citizens' engagement remains strong in both countries.
Right. So citizens' engagement remains strong in both countries are the very foundations that Mary actually makes. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to find out from both of you, anyone can actually go first, as to one is to shift the focus on citizen, the voter. Does the voter truly know and appreciate the power that they will in this ballot? Why? Because we've seen in recent times the issues of vote buying and then vote selling, where the voter feels like because of the state of the economy, I would want to trade my vote, i.e., take a picture of who I voted for on the ballot and then give it to the person to be able to actually have something small to actually feed on. Do the voter know the power that they will at the ballots, with the ballots? And if yes or no, how should the voter be educated the more to realize the power that he or she wills? Or guess Austin, Mr. Austin.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to quickly, I don't know, maybe Mary may have to look at the data properly. The election in the Gambia was December of 2020. I think it was a COVID year. So that I think the next election is next year, just to be sure of the accurate date. I am thinking, but I'm just maybe to put that on paper. You can quickly Google that and so that the public know more, because it is a huge conversation. I haven't said that. Is that what is in it for the ballot? What is in it for the ballot? Why do people need to sell their vote? The economy is so weird, and elected officials are continually impoverishing the people in a manner in which on election day they can hand out their power for a peanut. I've seen elections where I had to ask the person, I don't want to say whether it's a male or female, I had to ask the person, why are you selling your vote? And the person said outrightly, so what is the value of my vote? If I truly vote for someone I like, and eventually the person is manipulated out, in quote, manipulated out, how do I regain the confidence in the process? So what's your deal? In any case, even if the person I vote for wins an election, I may not see him or her again. So the voters' consciousness is that after election, these elected officials become invisible. They go into thin air. Meanwhile, ahead of election, you see them going to the nook and cranny of the city. In fact, in the dungeon, in the areas where vehicle cannot get to, during the election, they get in just to solicit for vote. And after election, you don't see them again. And elections are consistent. You see, every 4 years in most parts of area, only in the Gambia, we talked about 5 years, and in Senegal, that Macky Sall had to reduce it from 7 to 5 because as a Democrat, even though it later became another level. So people know in the previous election. So what happened? You came, you told us you're going to do this, but after you became president, all of the security architecture became your friends. We can no longer have access to you. So what is the need for me? That is the reason why people are beginning to sell their vote. That the only time they can get something from these people is during election. And we have used all manner of strategy to undermine that thing. And citizens tell you, we don't care. We are trying to bring the mathematics to say, if you collect, for instance, in Nigeria, you collect 10,000 naira. Let's say you collect 10,000 naira in Nigeria to vote for a candidate. We break that for 4 years. In 4 years, that will amount to 2,500 naira. That is even a big one, if you ask me. But there are those who collect 2,000 naira. There are those who collect 1,000 naira. Let's stay with 1,000 naira a bit. If you collect 1,000 naira, for a 4-year regime, it means that by the end of the 4 years, what you earn per year is 250 naira. What can 250 naira do for you today in the Nigeria of today? It can only buy about 10 sachet water, what we call pure water here. It cannot even cook a meal. But these people, these voters who are selling their vote will tell you that at least they get 1,000. They don't care what happened afterward, because in the next 4 years, they may not even get 1,000. So it's a question about improving our governance system, improving democracy. At this time, you want to call on ECOWAS to improve on its supplementary protocol on good governance and democracy, to improve, to force its own members, these own heads of state. If you check what is happening in West Africa of today, it is the nose diving of democracy that has brought about this militarization in our region again after a long while. Until democracy improves, until governance improves in our countries, the voters' confidence will drop, and there's a tendency for military regime. I'm sure you are aware. Only recently in Ibadan, in Oyo State, a convoy of military were stopped, and they were calling them, "We want military, go and take over. You are free, go and take over." In a country like Nigeria that has suffered military regime, we cannot afford to go to military regime right now in this country. But we call what's happening. You are seeing people who have not seen the bad side of the military now calling the military to come to their aid. Look at what happened in whether it's in Burkina Faso, Mali, or Niger, or even in Guinea. People who once called for military are no longer singing the tone of military. It is not that the military is an option. It is because of democratic backsliding that people are beginning to think that the military is an option. The military can never be an option. But in this case, because people are now selling their vote, there's no more value for the power. Like we said at the very beginning of this conversation, that the ballot paper is the power of the voter. But in this case, it is no longer the power. It is very weak.
Well, in rounding off this conversation, and because we're out of time, Mari, just your last word, very briefly, as Ghana goes to election. Your word to the electorate that will be, moving out in their thousands to vote for the elected leaders. What is that word that you have for them? And how should they use that ballot paper? Now we know which candidate falls on which number on the ballot paper. How should they make use of that ballot paper that they will be given on election day?
13 of them.
Yeah. I think it's a good time to first of all commend the citizens of Ghana, because they as we're saying, they are enough conscious and mobilized ahead of the election. But it's also an opportunity to call for their, responsibility, peaceful behavior. Recently, ahead of the election in Ghana, there has been a number of protests. Young people were outside to demand for, some rights, to make some rights demands about the Galamsey issue. And I think it's the reason why they will do that kind of protest. And this is also because of the critical time that the country is in. We are in a period of we are in a pre-election period, so all eyes are on the leaders, and then all eyes are on the issues, on kind of assessing the ruling years of the current leadership, and try to seek for solutions. So there has been even some arrests, some detention of young people that were qualified as illegal. But my key message as citizen, as also a citizen in Ghana and of West Africa is just for all of us to to remain on the alert and to remain conscious that democracy can be held and can be sustainable peacefully. It's not always through violence that we can convey our messages, but as young people, we should seek ways to really strongly support the process, get involved, get informed, get to know your registration point, get to know how to make use of technology. And I think Ghana is doing quite good on that. And also I want to really support Austin's point in when he was saying that there is a need to really invest on governance, invest on our democracy, so that our young people can still believe in it. Because if we don't, we are not able to see or to reap the democratic dividends, but then we don't trust anything related to democracy. We don't trust elections. We don't trust our leaders. We don't trust anything. So it's also a call not only for the citizens but also for our leaders to really understand that we need to see results. We need to get the democratic dividends that we have been looking for. So we wish good luck to the citizens of Ghana, and then we trust that as the country has been going through peaceful elections for a number of years, it's true that rumor says, this year will be terrible and everything, but I think it has been the same ad of all elections, and so we keep believing that our young people and then our electorate in Ghana will show a level of responsibility, conscience, and peaceful behavior, and we respect the results of the Electoral Commission. So we also advocate to them, to those electoral bodies, to our national institution, to really guarantee fairness of and integrity of election, as well as inclusion for everybody. Address the issues of internet, address the issue of the remote areas, address the issue of electricity, and I think it will all be good for the country and then for West Africa. We need Ghana to stand as a beacon of democracy in West Africa.
Definitely, we need Ghana to stand as a beacon of democracy in West Africa. Mr. Austin, your 30 seconds will rounding up message to Ghana as we go to the polls and general upholding of the power of the ballot.
Thank you. From the assessment we did, as earlier mentioned, Ghana must avoid any form of violence in the elections. Political party must truly train their party agent to police the elections. It is not enough to complain after the poll. It is enough to be prepared for the election and putting all arsenal in place. And above all, we must stop fake news. Fake news has become a challenge in our political landscape, and we're already seeing that in Ghana. Targeting electoral institutions, targeting political party opponents, it is not in the best interest of Ghana as a country and of course as the people. Because after the election on December 7th, President Nana Akufo, who is going out, Professor John Mahama, who is an opposition candidate, and of course the candidate of the NPP are still Ghanaians. They need Ghana to remain Ghana.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Austin Igbe, for that closing remark. And Mari, thank you also for your insight and your, sharing all of these details about the ballot, the power of the ballot paper with us. Thank you so much again for your time. Well, I guess